Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is often said that weakness is something to be avoided, something to be ashamed of, something to hide. But I stand before you today to challenge that mindset. I believe that within every weakness lies the seed of strength waiting to be discovered. The question is not, how can we eliminate our weaknesses? But how can we transform our weaknesses? Today, I want to share with you three key principles to help you turn your weaknesses into strengths. The first and most crucial step in turning a weakness into a strength is to embrace it rather than hide from it. The world often teaches us that weakness is something to be ashamed of, something that makes us inferior or less capable. We're told to mask our flaws, cover up our vulnerabilities, and present ourselves as perfect or invulnerable. We're told to mask our flaws, cover up our vulnerabilities. We're told to mask our flaws, cover up our vulnerabilities. But let me tell you, this is not only misleading, it is limiting. When we try to hide our weaknesses, we are only denying ourselves the opportunity for growth. Weaknesses are not signs of failure or lack, they are simply areas where we haven't yet fully developed. And guess what? That is okay. Every human being on this earth has weaknesses. The strongest of us have simply learned to face them, to acknowledge them, and to work with them rather than pretending they don't exist. For so many of us, the first instinct when we encounter something we're not good at is to shy away from it. We feel that by admitting to our shortcomings, we will be exposed, judged, and perhaps even rejected. But this fear of vulnerability often paralyzes us, preventing us from exploring the very opportunities that can help us grow. To truly transform a weakness into a strength, you must first be willing to own it, to stand in the truth of your imperfection. When you accept your weaknesses, you no longer see them as flaws, you see them as areas of potential. Each weakness is simply an opportunity in disguise, waiting for you to step forward, take responsibility, and ask yourself, what can I do to grow from this? This mindset shift is incredibly liberating. Instead of feeling defeated or discouraged by your weaknesses, you begin to see them as starting points for improvement. Weakness is not the end, it's the beginning of a journey toward greater strength, resilience, and wisdom. Let me give you an example. Think about a person learning to play an instrument for the first time. At first, their fingers may not be nimble enough to press the keys or strings properly. The music may sound off, and they may feel frustrated or embarrassed by their lack of skill. But if they hide from the difficulty, if they avoid practicing because they feel they are not good enough, they will never improve. However, if they embrace the weakness, acknowledge that they are not yet skilled, but that they can grow with time and effort, they open themselves up to the process of learning and mastering the instrument. When we embrace our weaknesses, we begin to develop humility. We understand that we are not perfect, and that's not something to fear. In fact, it's what makes us human. It's what allows us to connect with others, to show empathy, and to create deeper relationships. Everyone has their own struggles, their own weaknesses, and by embracing ours, we give permission for others to do the same. This is not about self-criticism or self-pity. It's about honesty and awareness. It's about realizing that no one has it all figured out, and that's okay. In fact, it's precisely because of our weaknesses that we are driven to improve. Without weaknesses, there would be no need for growth. So, let's shift our mindset. Instead of looking at weakness as something to fear or hide from, let's begin to see it for what it truly is, a pathway to greater strength. Embrace your weaknesses, welcome them as part of your journey, and allow them to lead you toward the growth that lies on the other side. The way you see something determines the way you respond to it. If you see weakness as a burden, you will avoid it, deny it, or become discouraged by it. But if you see weakness as an opportunity, you will embrace it, learn from it, and ultimately transform it into a source of strength. Everything begins with perspective. Most people have been conditioned to believe that weaknesses are permanent limitations, unchangeable flaws that define their worth and potential. This mindset is the greatest barrier to success because it traps individuals in a cycle of self-doubt and fear. If you believe your weakness is a fixed reality, you will remain stuck in the same patterns. You will remain stuck in the same excuses and allowing your limitations to control your future. But what if you could reframe your perspective? What if you could see weakness not as a failure, but as a foundation for growth? Reframing weakness begins with understanding that weakness is not the opposite of strength, it is the birthplace of strength. Every great skill, talent, and ability begins with a struggle. A child learning to walk stumbles and falls countless times before taking their first steady step. A person learning a new language stammers and mispronounces words before achieving fluency. A leader who appears confident today once faced uncertainty, doubt, and setbacks. Weakness is not a sign that you are incapable. It is a sign that you are in the process of developing something new. Take a moment to consider this. Many of the most successful people in history were once seen as weak in certain areas. Some of the world's greatest speakers once struggled with public speaking. Some of the most innovative thinkers were once dismissed as unintelligent. Some of the strongest leaders once doubted themselves. But what made them different? It wasn't that they were naturally gifted or free from weaknesses. It was that they refused to accept their weaknesses as final. They chose to see their struggles as stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. When you change your perspective on weakness, you begin to see it as an opportunity for innovation and creativity. Many of the world's greatest inventions were created by individuals who struggled with a particular challenge. Instead of allowing their weaknesses to defeat them, they used them as motivation to find solutions. Weakness forces you to think differently, to problem solve, to develop new skills, and to build resilience. Reframing your perspective on weakness also allows you to see the strengths hidden within what you once considered flaws. Perhaps you struggle with being overly detail-oriented, and you see it as a weakness. But in reality, that same trait makes you precise, thorough, and excellent in your work. Maybe you view yourself as too quiet and reserved, believing it to be a disadvantage. Yet that same quality makes you a great listener, observer, and deep thinker. What you perceive as a weakness may in fact be your greatest asset. You just need to change the way you see it. Another key aspect of reframing weakness is understanding that it is temporary. Weakness is not a life sentence. It is a phase in the process of development. What seems impossible today may become second nature tomorrow. What feels like an obstacle now may later be the very thing that propels you to success. Most importantly, when you reframe your perspective on weakness, you release yourself from the fear of failure. You no longer see mistakes as proof of inadequacy, but as necessary steps toward growth. You begin to appreciate the lessons that come with struggle rather than resenting them. You start to recognize that every challenge, every setback, and every difficulty is shaping you into a stronger, wiser, and more capable individual. Weakness is often viewed as a hindrance, an obstacle standing in the way of success. But what if I told you that the very thing you perceive as a weakness could be the key to unlocking your greatest potential? The truth is, weakness is not meant to stop you. It is meant to shape you. It is not a barrier. It is a bridge. The difference between those who succeed and those who remain stagnant is how they choose to respond to their weaknesses. Every great achiever has faced weaknesses, but instead of running from them, they leverage them. They turn their struggles into tools for transformation. Weakness, when approached with the right mindset, can become your greatest teacher, your greatest motivator, and your greatest advantage. The first way to leverage weakness is to allow it to fuel your determination. Some of the most successful individuals in the world did not succeed because everything came easy to them. They succeeded because they faced challenges that forced them to push harder, think deeper, and fight longer. Weakness exposes gaps, and those gaps are what drive you to seek knowledge, improve skills, and develop resilience. If everything came naturally to you, you would never be forced to grow beyond your comfort zone. Consider a person who struggles with public speaking. They may feel nervous, stumble over their words, and fear being judged, but instead of avoiding speaking opportunities, they decide to face their weakness head on. They practice relentlessly, study great speakers, and seek feedback. Over time, what once was a crippling weakness becomes a remarkable strength. The very thing that once held them back now sets them apart. This is the power of leveraging weakness. It forces you to develop habits of discipline and perseverance. It makes you more aware of your potential and more willing to invest in yourself. Weakness pushes you to work harder, learn more, and refine your craft. It gives you an edge that those who never struggle may never develop. Another way to leverage weakness is to use it to build empathy and connection. People are drawn to authenticity. When you are open about your struggles and the journey to overcoming them, you inspire others to do the same. Weakness allows you to relate to people on a deeper level because you understand what it means to struggle. It teaches you patience, compassion, and humility, qualities that make great leaders, mentors, and influencers. Many of the most influential leaders in history were not those who had everything handed to them, but those who overcame great adversity. They turned their weaknesses into stories of perseverance that motivated others. They used their struggles as a testimony to prove that greatness is not reserved for the gifted, but for the determined. Most importantly, leveraging weakness means understanding that setbacks are setups for comebacks. What looks like failure today may be the very experience that prepares you for success tomorrow. The most valuable lessons often come from moments of difficulty. Weakness forces you to be innovative, to think creatively, and to develop strategies that others may never consider. It is in the struggle that character is built, resilience is forged, and true greatness is born. So,